So as the world continues to fight, the American people are asked one question. Do you support this or do you support that? And what is this? What is that? Well, we will discuss that in today's video. But what I can tell you is that right now, lawmakers are asking the American people to either support war or support spending cuts here in the United States. Now, a lot of people do support, backing Israel, backing humanitarian aid to Gaza and the Palestinian people. But do they support cuts to our government spending? Well, some say no. But when it comes down to it, they do support cuts. I will address that in just a moment. All I ask is if you enjoy these daily updates, do me a favor, go ahead, hit that like button, and let's begin. So how much do the American people support Israel in their quest to pretty much overtake Hamas? Well, they do support Israel, but when it comes to taking the lives of the Palestinian people, they say no, it is not acceptable. But we just learned today that Israel now says that their troops have entered the heart of Gaza's main city. The soldiers are now in Gaza City. This is according to the Israeli minister. One thing I can tell you is now that troops are in Gaza City, this should make it easier to go and find the Hamas militants. Once they find the Hamas militants and locate the tunnels, then we could see an end to this fight. But it's going to take some time. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, I bring this up because here in the United States, we are seeing certain leaders, certain lawmakers are pushing for additional spending. Others say we cannot spend more money on a war that we are not even involved in. But this brings up the question, what are we going to fund? Well, according to the G7 nations, they announced just today as well a unified stance on Israel and Hamas's war after the intensive meeting in Tokyo. And in this meeting, and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is there. In this meeting, I want to read you this. I want to read you this statement. It says, all parties must allow impended humanitarian support for civilians, including food, water, medical care, fuel, and shelter, and access for humanitarian workers. This is according to a statement by U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. It also goes on to say, we support humanitarian pauses in corridors to facilitate urgently needed assistance, civilian movement, and the release of hostages. Okay, they're all in agreement there. Well, until we see hostages released, and I believe there's still over 200 hostages, people being held hostage by Hamas, until we see hostages released, Netanyahu, he states that Israel will continue to hammer the region with bombs. So, we'll see. We do know, according to Reuters this morning as well, that thousands of civilians have fled North Gaza as Israeli troops and Hamas fighters begin to clash. Again, it's starting. The ground battle is starting, and this is where civilians are trying to get out as quickly as possible. Some say it's just taking far too long. Now, here's where things are really starting to take a toll on the American people. And that is that things are getting worse. They're not getting better. Here's what I mean. Right now, lawmakers are asking the American people, asking their constituents, do you support this or that? Do you support spending additional money on a war that the United States really isn't involved in? Or would you rather, and in order to do that, we have to cut government funding? Or would you rather see the money go to the people here in the United States? And this is where the majority of people say we need to continue to keep the money here on U.S. soil. Okay. This is where the Senate is now eyeing a huge Maxibus Bill to address year-end spending. Now, what is a Maxibus Bill? Well, here's what you need to know. There's multiple different bills that could be passed. Lawmakers have tried to pass an omnibus bill. This is mainly Democrats that try to do this. And in the omnibus, well, right now it's mainly Democrats that are trying to push this through because they do have more power, being that they have the majority in the Senate and they got the presidency. But here's where things are going to get interesting over the next week. Democrats are attempting to pass this omnibus bill, or what they're calling a Maxibus bill. And the reason why they're trying to pass this is essentially it's technically the same thing. Okay, omnibus and Maxibus bill are technically the same thing. An omnibus bill is the 12 appropriation bills all together. And then you have a minibus, which would be like 2 or 3 of those appropriation bills. Those two linked together, those 3 linked together, and then they vote on those. The Maxibus is the majority of the appropriation bills. So like right now, there'd be 9. So what's actually happening at this time is lawmakers are fighting over, do we pass the entire omnibus bill? Do we pass a Maxibus bill and the minibus? Or do we pass the bills individually? Republicans say we need to do it individually because this now allows lawmakers to vote on individual things like it could be funding for Ukraine, funding for Israel, funding for Social Security and Medicare, funding for affordable housing and other things, right? Transportation. Now, I'll get to transportation in a minute because this is where things are actually falling apart. And this is really shedding light as to what lawmakers are doing and how this is going to impact the American people. But Republicans do not want to pass a full omnibus bill or a maxibus. They want to pass individual bills. The reason for this is because when you have a maxibus bill or an omnibus bill, it only goes through one committee. When you pass individual bills, they go through the committees first. The committees will then appropriate the money. There will be an amendment period, and it's not just one group of people is passing the entire thing. Because when that happens, they don't read the bill. Now, Democrats say there's not enough time to do individual bills. And again, we've been working on this bill for 6 months. We've been working on this thing for 6 to 8 months, almost a year. Every single year they pass this bill. They have to pass it or we see a government shutdown. And so now Democrats are saying, no, we can't do it. There's just not enough time. Republicans say, well, if there's not enough time, we're going to see a government shutdown or we are going to suspend additional funding and it's going to stay locked in at the current rate. So this is where things are starting to turn from pretty much bad to worse, is now Democrats say there's not enough time and Republicans are saying, well, this is what we got. This is what we can do because we are not going to pass a large omnibus bill. Now, here's where it's going to force the American people to pretty much pay this. I want to show you this right here. It says House GOP yanks vote on funding bill amid New York Republicans' Amtrak concerns. Now, what are they talking about here? Well, here's what they're talking about. I want to read you this. I'm going to read you this a little bit out of order. So I want to start with this one right here, this middle. It says a summary of the bill updated last week set the proposed price tag of little more than $90 billion in discretionary funding, falling more than 8% below what President Biden requested in his budget. That spending level is still a small boost above the previous fiscal year's allocation, the summary says, which is partly due to efforts aimed at offsetting plummeting housing receipts and ensuring eligible recipients of housing assistance do not lose their assistance due to inflation. Okay. Also says, this is from Representative Mark Molinaro, says, I think that many of us are comfortable reining in federal spending, but not disproportionately impacting our region. This is what he said while adding proposed cuts in the bill are just too significant. I want to read you this one as well. It says, in order to address these shortfalls and fund Republican priorities, the bill eliminates several programs and makes deep cuts to others, especially those that receive large amounts in the infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Okay, so what is he addressing here? Well, first off, he says, but not disproportionately impacting our region. So he is a representative out of New York. What he is opposing is the funding that Amtrak is getting, because Amtrak received billions of dollars in the previous bill, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And so now, and again, we bring this up all the time, now we're seeing lawmakers are stepping forward and saying, no, we don't approve of cuts, because now it's impacting us here in our home state, in our region. So they don't approve it now. This is where things could go from bad to worse, because the new Speaker Mike Johnson, he is all for passing these individual appropriations bills. He's all for ensuring that every single bill is reviewed and approved first before it gets voted on. But again, we got 9 days. We only have 9 days to pass these 12 appropriation bills. A couple have already been passed. So really, we got like 9 days to pass 9 bills. But according to Democrats, there's still not enough time. So what I'm here to tell you is things could go from bad to worse very quickly. This could mean the government could shut down. But here's where things really start to take a turn. If the U.S. government shuts down, military personnel that are being attacked over in Syria, those people are still responsible for being on the ground. They are still required to fight for the American people. But until this government funding bill gets passed, they would not be paid. Think about that for a second. They're going to put their lives on the line, but they will not be paid until after the government funding bill gets passed. So, this is why things should go from bad to worse very quickly. But as we get more information, I promise I'll fill you in on all the latest news and updates. That is what we know as of today, though. So, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.